All right. So uh, a lot of people talk about depression and exercise and how you should exercise if you're depressed, and that is not bad advice. However, it's not always the best advice, especially at the beginning. Um, a lot of people will also talk about how depression is a chemical imbalance in the brain, and that is 100% accurate. What we normally see, so a great example. I got a patient in the other day. We do a lot of work with depression and stuff like that. Pulled his blood, and then we did. So blood work is phenomenal at showing what's in the blood. Really good for hormones, really good for stuff like that. Bad for tissue function. And so we do both blood work and we do Eastern medicine testing to test the tissues. Anyway, so this guy comes in. He's had depression for a while. Uh, Low thyroid, low D3, low testosterone, high C-reactive protein, high insulin, high fasting insulin, a couple other things. Massively inflamed, horrible nutrient deficiencies. So yeah, 100% chemical imbalance. This type of person, I would not recommend go work out for his depression. The first thing that you'd have to do with this guy is radically decrease the inflammation and then substantially increase nutrient functionality before exercise is going to be a good idea. So, just look at a couple of different things. High fasting insulin. So he's in high insulin resistance. Okay. So his body's utilization of sugars and fats and whatnot for production of energy is going to be a little bit altered. So we're going to have blood sugar issues. Low testosterone. So he's not going to heal. So he'll be extra sore and extra tired. Low iodine, thyroid function is going to be down. And he's got parasitic function in his gut. So we know he's not going to be able to make serotonin. So there's no other path for this person than to be depressed because that's what the chemical consistency of this function shows. And so when you look at these guys, and this is sad because people like this person, I see all the time, and they have depression for 5, 6, 10 years. And they've been put on SSRIs, which is the dumbest thing in the world. I've never understood why people would do SSRIs from just a standard functionality standpoint. So what an SSRI does is it radically decreases your body's ability to break down neurotransmitters. Here's the problem. That's like saying I'm poor and somebody saying, well, you need to make sure you look for your nickels and your dimes. Your gut can make 1,000 times or 10,000 times the serotonin that you're stopping breaking down if you take the SSRIs. Why not just fix the gut, allow the body to do what it was designed to do and make all the serotonin you need for your brain? I mean, this is very common sense type of stuff. We don't have enough serotonin. All right, let's increase it by this much. Why? We can increase it by this much. No. Pharmaceuticals have to get paid, so we're only going to help you this much, which is why lots of times SSRIs don't really help that much. If you look at the research, the vast majority of people, you look at it, it's barely above placebo function as far as benefit. So horrible idea. But killing the yeast, killing the parasites, restoring gut flora, thus allowing the body to produce its own serotonin again, that seems like the path that would make the most sense. And that's what we do, and we've had great success with it. But the other thing is, like I said, this guy has low iodine, so we've got to radically increase iodine absorption and intake. Low testosterone, got to pull that up. And we've got to start suppressing all of the inflammatory stuff. High cortisol, high homocysteine, all that's methylated B6 functionality. So obviously low B vitamins as well. D3, which we've talked about this before. D3 is not a vitamin; it's a hormone. The definition of vitamin is essential nutrient. D3 is not a nutrient; it's a hormone that cannot be created in the body. D3 is made in the body, so it can't be a vitamin, and it's not a nutrient. A nutrient is something that's within a chemical reaction. D3 carries things all over the body; it's a messenger. So again, we've got 3 major hormones that are out: low testosterone, too high insulin, which is insulin's hormone, and too low D3. Like every time I see this, we see depression, which is very, very, very common. But so is diabetes. So is insulin resistance. So if we're not going to discuss how these things get there and how to fix them, we're going to have all sorts of problems all over the place. But again, if you fix the insulin resistance or you fix the diabetes, that's going to radically take money out of pharmaceutical pockets and out of the medical system's pockets. And that's what they don't want. That's why they're not fixing people. That's why they're putting people on drugs you have to take every single day forever, because then you pay them every day forever. And so that's why these things are not getting solved. The high insulin thing is also a big indicator of massive inflammation. So when your body, there's a couple different key things on blood, and when you start looking at these things, when you have nutrient disruption or low nutrient function, and things like high C-reactive protein, high homocysteine, high cortisol, high insulin, you're looking at a very, very, very inflamed system. And so you've got to start breaking that down. And so before I'd have this person go exercise is 100% part of this program. But what we're going to do first is we're going to do, kill and refill. We're going to kill the things that are negative. We're going to detox the things that are bad. And then we're going to, really, really, really feed the organs tons and tons of nutrients so that we can, one, get the tissue levels back up to where they need to be in the storage department and the function department. And then we'll be able to then start moving over into now you can exercise. Because until you're metabolically healthy, exercise isn't always the best idea. Yeah, you can get stuff moving around and your body can start, utilizing things that, stealing from here and there and make you feel better for a little bit. But until you get those chemicals right, until you get all that stuff reset, you're going to have massive, massive problems. And then the problem we get into is that what happens is that as you start getting your brain, your body full of this inflammation, you start seeking things that are a little bit more toxic. And so people start craving sugars. They start craving, the bad fats and stuff like that. So you start thinking, oh man, I want Whataburger, I want French fries, I want, whatever, because your body's just trying to get whatever it can, specifically that MSG. So, MSG in almost all fast food is monosodium glutamate is an excitatory thing. So your brain goes, oh, I feel better. I feel awake. I feel great. That was delicious. I feel happy. And then 34 minutes later, you're like, oh, now I don't feel as happy. And I have a headache, and I had my, whatever, I'm tired or whatever, because that MSG is an excitotoxin and it's creating problems. So, these are the type of things that we start to see when we start looking at the biochemical or the nutrient deficiency or the chemical imbalances in depression. And you're like, wow, why is depression so rampant? Why is it everywhere? And they start looking at it like, well, it's probably because the home life is bad. 100% agree with that. Absolutely. We need to work on our marriages. We need to work on our homes. We need to work on our kids. 100%. No argument there at all. And they go, well, it's because of the economy. All right. Yeah, I can see how the economy would be depressing for a lot of people. But the thing we don't talk about is the actuality of it. Their nutrient levels are piss poor. They're not getting the nutrients they need. They're not getting the things their bodies require to function. I think it's hilarious that we're starting to have to pass laws to force medical doctors, to force medical schools to teach nutrition to medical doctors. You know what the funny thing about that is? You know why they don't teach nutrition? Because that's how the body works. If you teach a medical doctor how the body works, they're going to start making people better. And that's not going to be good for pharmaceutical sales, which is why they don't teach nutrition, which is why they don't teach, all of the pathways that I keep talking about. Because again, the medical system, the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, their goal is to increase pharmaceutical profits, not to make people better. And you're like, well, that's crazy. We have the highest, year after year, pharmaceuticals have made more money than they've ever made before. And our health is getting worse than it's ever been. I fix diabetes all the time. I turn around dementia. We fix depression a lot. These are things that are not super difficult. The research is there. It's actually pretty old. A lot of the research I'm using is from the 60s. So we know how to do this. This isn't wild and crazy. And I'm sure lots of you guys have heard, people turned their life around. They were all depressed and they, cleaned up their act and they ate better and they started exercising and all of a sudden they felt better. Yeah. But they started eating first. You've got to work on the diet first. You've got to detox all the trash out. You got to fill the body with nutrients. This is the other reason why I think that why George W. Bush, not the medical, there were no doctors involved. Just George W. Bush decided that we should make testosterone illegal, the healing hormone, the one that fixes that has the biggest impact on depression, anxiety, fat loss, muscle gain, bone healing, erectile dysfunction, orgasm function, sex drive, mental stability. Yeah. Let's make that illegal. That's going to make massive profits for the pharmaceutical companies. It's going to horrible impact on everybody else though. So if you guys or someone you love is dealing with depression, you need to start looking at the inflammatory pathways. You guys need to start looking at inflammation issues. You guys need to start begging. Here's the problem we get into. Like, I can tell you all the labs to have pulled. I can tell you what to do. The problem is that if you have to tell your doctor to pull a lab, they have no idea why they're pulling it. They don't understand how that thing factors into the problem you have. And so that's the issue we get into. It's like, well, how come other doctors aren't doing this? This requires a giant amount of biochemical knowledge in order to do this. You've got to understand physiology all the way through. Like, this is why I get so pissed off when people talk about, losing weight is a calorie deficit, or your body runs on calories. That's bullshit. Calories are nonsense. There is no calorie function in your body. Your body runs on adenosine triphosphate. It's made from fat or it's made from sugar. When you eat something, that thing has a hormonal response to the body that tells your body what to do. If you don't understand that, that's the starting point, right? That's like right after you read the instructions on a board game and you select your piece. That's the selecting your piece. Understanding the body runs on ATP and how ATP is created is the chemical start for everything. So if they don't understand that, they're not going to be able to help very much. So that's kind of the path. If you guys have friends who are depressed, we do this a lot, telemed, have them get a hold of us. I'll walk them through the process, and we can start getting these people better. If nothing else, we can go through it. Like, check your fasting insulin. If your fasting insulin's high, the problem is that changing your diet is not necessarily going to get you where you want to go, because before your body can start regulating insulin, you have to regulate inflammation. When you have high inflammation, you will have high insulin. So when you have high insulin, you have insulin resistance, and that's what people call diabetes. The problem is that before you can change the diet and bring down the insulin resistance, you've got to remove the inflammation, which is secondarily holding the insulin high. So yes, dietary changes are phenomenal for type 2 diabetes, and I highly recommend them. In fact, it's mandatory. However, you've got to deal with this inflammatory problem that's holding the insulin higher than it's supposed to be anyway. Because it's not always just what you eat. Like, there's a lot of diabetics who've gotten better with what they've eaten, but their insulin still stays high. Why? Because they still have the high inflammation. You've got to pull the inflammation out. And the vast majority of people have a parasitic infection. This is why everybody's, I took ivermectin and I feel amazing. Yeah, all you did was kill the parasites. The things that medical science have been like, that's not a thing. Parasites aren't real. Yeah, now that we find out that they are, it's just another lie the medical system's told us to keep you sick. So start by the way I do it. I'm not trying to tell you to do that. There's a lot of pitfalls in this you got to watch out for. Kill the parasites, kill the yeast, restore the function of the probiotics back to the gut while you're feeding the liver, while you're feeding the kidneys. When we talk about detoxing the liver, there is no supplement or drug or technique that detoxes the liver or the kidneys. You have to feed the liver the chemicals it requires to do the job you're asking it to do. Then it will do the job it's designed to do, and it will detox the body. But you have to make the conditions for the liver to function right. That's how this all works. That's how detoxes really work. So that's kind of how a lot of this goes in. If you're a little depressed, mess with it on your own, change your diet, take some supplements, get your hormones pulled. If you or a loved one has something that's pretty severe, or they've got a decent amount of depression that's been going on for a while, get with somebody who understands how to pull the labs, what labs to look for, how to deal with the inflammation, how to reset the nutrient levels. Usually that takes me 4 to 6 weeks, so not very long. Call it 2 months, right? Because everybody's nutrient function is a little bit different. So let's say the detox and the nutrient fill takes 2 months. That'll include the hormones reset and that type of thing. Then we can start exercising. Then we can start moving on. Now, what I do with it is that we always do mental mindset work and stuff like that as well. So, but I don't do Freudian stuff. Like, if you guys want Freudian psychotherapy, you want to sit and associate into your problems and live in your problem and talk about your problem all day long, fantastic. Go do that with a licensed trained therapist. We're going to do stuff on the Alfred Adler model, which is we're going to figure out what emotional issues you've got. We're going to deal with those emotions. We're going to work with the subconscious. We're going to look at and find and deliver and help you live your purpose. That is where I have felt that the best mental change comes from. And don't let people tell you that the only way is to sit and talk about your problems from a Freudian aspect. Freud's a phenomenal, massive benefit to the community. However, there's a whole other way. Alfred Adler did all his stuff with Pavlov and Jung and those guys. That is the path I'd recommend. So if you guys have any questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, or jump over to pillarsofwellness.com. But get with us. If you've got that, or if you have any issues with, if you have any loved ones with depression, we'll kind of give you the ideas how to walk through it. Thanks for your time. You guys have a fabulous day.